Oh, good, you're already here. Well, hello. I'm Apprentice Researcher Brennan. I've been working here for a few years now, but obviously my supervisors still have me doing the busy work that they don't feel like doing themselves. And you are the lucky individual who gets to be the first to take this class. You're okay if I record this, right? It won't be focused on you or anything. SPAAB just requested that we put this together for people like you who, suddenly join our little world. And I really don't feel like having to go through everything again later. Oh, right. We'll get into who the SPAAB are later. No need to worry about that for right now. Alright then, let's get this started, yeah? We've even got some artists' interpretations to go along with some of this. We will start with the big stuff first. Realities, existence as we know it. There are theoretically an infinite number of realities in existence. Some people might call them alternate realities, but in actuality, there's no one true or standard reality. If there's no normal, then there can't exactly be alternates that deviate from it, right? So, rather than alternate realities, a better way to think of it is that each reality is its own real existence. Anything can look odd as an outsider looking in, but to someone who's lived it, it's just their normal. Humanity doesn't currently know of very many realities due to our current inability to travel outside of our own. The information we do have kind of relies on beings that are able to travel between realities and are willing to share their knowledge with us. However, experts theorize that no two realities are exactly the same. Some may be more similar than others, but it's believed that no matter how similar they may be, there will always be something that distinguishes them from each other. What we do know for sure, though, is that each of the realities that we currently know of have a dominant or primary species. We found that some of these beings are more closely connected to other realities and, like I mentioned before, are able to travel between them. Others, like humanity, have yet to successfully achieve this. Speaking of humanity, I guess I should start with our reality, right? Our reality, which we have lovingly named Kune, is home to humanity. We are, as you might have guessed, the dominant species of Kune. There's not much to say here, other than that we aren't yet able to travel to other realities, but we also aren't completely disconnected from them, as we'll discuss later. I could go into world history, our most common societal structures, and current events, but that definitely isn't what you're here for. Also, it's been a long time since I've taken a history class, so honestly, you probably know more about all that than me. So, moving on. Historically, there have been many instances of beings from other realities paying us a visit. Our ancestors typically called these beings demons. We know now that these beings are just the native residents of different realities, much in the same way that we reside in Kune, but still the name stuck. We've categorized these beings as benevolent, ambivalent, or malevolent, depending on their typical reported behaviors towards others. Obviously, there's variation within each of these populations, just like how some humans are good people, and others are horrifyingly terrible. Of all the realities that we're currently aware of, we know the most about the Inferno Dominion. This is because the dominant species, known as flame demons, frequently visit our reality. It's not uncommon for flame demons to establish contracts, pacts, or deals with humans, and in doing so, we have been able to gather quite a bit of information regarding them and their home reality. We know that while there are regional government systems, the primary ruling class is most similar to a monarchy. They have a king-like monarch, although apparently the title used for their ruler, Saarthan, yeah, it's non-gendered. Aside from their current Saarthan, there is his inner circle of advisors known as the Dervan, and an outer circle that resembles aristocracy and are called the Derthal. The land itself is a bit strange in comparison to ours. It's apparently always dusk. They have 2 suns, yet neither is ever directly above. We honestly have no clue how this is possible, so we're just taking the flame demon's word for it. There is some mild variety depending on region, but the landscape is largely rocky and mountainous with little to no vegetation and no large bodies of water like oceans. Both the wildlife and the landscape seem to be largely hostile and inhospitable. Because of this, flame demons are reported to predominantly live within large walled towns made almost entirely of whatever types of stone are most common in that region. While it's gruesome, apparently it's not common for someone to be able to live for long outside the confines of these walls. Flame demons seem to be pretty tough, though. Or at least the ones who come to our reality are. For all we know, it could just be a very specific type of person who's able to do this, so we could very well be biased in these assumptions, you know? Anyway, flame demons, as their name suggests, are one with the flame. The way they describe it is almost like a soul. They're able to use it and control it, but they also need to nurture it because if they don't, it's at risk of going out and ending their life. We've categorized them as ambivalent, but they can be vindictive and quick to anger if they feel that they've been wronged in any way. They also tend to have prideful personalities, but again, it could be that that's only applicable to the ones who enter our reality. Their appearances can vary, I imagine, in the same way that human appearances vary, but all of the flame demons that we've established contact with have had horns and markings similar to tattoos. Apparently, their horns grow differently depending on the region that they're from, and the markings are a symbol of successfully reaching adulthood. Unfortunately, we've never been able to pry any more info about that out of them. We do know, though, that on average, flame demons reach adulthood after about 40 to 50 of our years. But there is no set specific age that signifies adulthood. We also know that they are able to live to be up to 800 years old. Alright, moving on. Don't want to bore you too much. The next reality that we're aware of is called Crystallis. It's home to the ice demons. Ice demons very rarely make dealings with humanity, so we don't have nearly as many first-hand accounts of their reality. However, flame demons have a long history with them. It's not a great history, so take anything negative about ice demons said by them with a grain of salt. Ice demons also have a monarchy system, but their reality is split into several regions that each have their own monarch. They have a council of these monarchs that meet to discuss any issues regarding either their reality as a whole or anything involving other realities. Flame demons and ice demons have a long, tumultuous relationship with each other and have been on the tail end of a long war that has lasted for the past several hundred years. Apparently, there have been attempts recently to mend the relationship between the two realities. But all of the flame demons that we've spoken to have been skeptical that anything will come of it. As far as the land itself, it's, well, not land, that is. Their world is primarily water, with large oceans covering most of the map. Because of this, most of their wildlife is either avian or aquatic. Also, despite their name, apparently only a small portion of their world is covered in ice. Some of their cities are built on large, dense ice floats, and others are on the few rocky land masses. It's also believed that there are large cities built under their oceans, but for obvious reasons, no flame demons have been able to say for sure. We've classified ice demons as ambivalent, as according to our sources, they tend to be incredibly logical thinkers who view true neutrality as the ideal, and are even used as intermediaries between other demon species. The neutrality thing is a bit ironic though, isn't it? I mean, what with the several 100-year-long war they've had going on? Anyway, whatever, not my business. They're reported to live longer than flame demons, with their average lifespan being approximately 1,000 of our years. Those are pretty much the only types of demons that we have non-classified direct accounts from, so the rest that I'll be describing are going to be a bit less in-depth. Let's see, what's next? Home of the Mother. Verdant demons live there. It's one of the most unique realities that we're aware of for several reasons. There aren't any recorded direct interactions with verdant demons, so our only information on them comes from flame demons. Even then, most flame demons that we've spoken to report little interaction with them, and they honestly seem to avoid them. We've had multiple flame demons report a distaste or aversion to the home of the mother, to put it lightly. Some harsh language has been said that I won't be repeating here for the sake of professionalism. Apparently, this reality is heavily forested and lush, with thick vegetation that seems much more alive than anything found here. Now, the home of the mother is called this due to, well, a being called the Mother. The Mother is an enormous, seemingly sentient tree that births all verdant demons. To get an idea of the alleged scale of this thing, you can see here. Sorry, that's a bit hard to see. Let me just... Nope, still too small. A little more... There. See that little guy? That's the average size of a human in comparison to the mother. She's a little big. There aren't any known government systems within their society, and there honestly doesn't seem to be a use for one. This is because all verdant demons are reported to be in a sort of hive mind with each other and the mother. It's their matriarch, their source of life, their everything. Apparently, on one specific day, every decade or so, the mother grows shoots that will produce anywhere from 10 to 15 saplings. These saplings take many years to grow, decades even, but once they reach maturity, they become sentient and mobile, thus becoming verdant demons. According to our sources, they very rarely leave their reality, because it's their life's purpose to tend to and protect both the mother and any saplings that are growing at her base. Apparently, they can be extremely deadly if either are endangered, swarming to eliminate any threat as efficiently as possible. Scary stuff. Wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that. But we've classified them as benevolent, both because of their desire to cultivate life and because they seemingly only fight in self-defense. They also have very long lifespans, much longer than flame demons, but we're currently unsure of the specifics. So, moving on, we come to... Venseus. Mimics. I've got to admit, this one actually freaks me out a little. Just something about it gives me the chills. Anyway, we don't know many specifics regarding Venseus due to mimics' tendency to remain in their own reality. Or, at the very least, they don't make their presence known in other realities. Ugh. We do know that there is a much less structured society among mimics, and they tend to prefer lives of either isolation or very small groups. Is it a territorial thing? Are they completely asocial? We don't really know. We're also in the dark about what mimics look like in their natural state, or if they even have a natural physical form. They have the ability to alter their appearance to mimic, hence the name, creatures, beings, and even inanimate objects that they've previously observed. We don't really know much about the limits of their abilities, and honestly, I'm okay with that. The less I know, the better. What little we do know about the landscape and wildlife of Venseus, though, is that it's eerily similar to much of Earth. Oh, and for some reason, mimics are classified as ambivalent. Can't for the life of me figure out why, though. I mean, Sorry, getting off track. Back to business. Next, we've got Metamorphose, which is home to the blood and decay demons. That's one type of demon. Don't let the name confuse you. Some people call them blood demons, some people call them decay demons, but they're the same beings. We know next to nothing about the reality itself, as it's an extremely hostile and reportedly quite desolate environment to anything not native to it. It's apparently like one large organism, with all of the creatures and beings that inhabit it being the organs, or maybe cells. Anyway, any foreign beings that enter it are attacked by the world itself, like a body fighting off a virus. As for blood and decay demons, they're much less gruesome than their name might lead you to believe. They behave similarly to something like mushrooms, in the sense that they use a process of rebirth, sort of. They feed off of decay to then create new or renewed life. Interestingly, they also use this process to essentially be reborn themselves, and as such, they technically could be considered immortal. They also have a much, much smaller population than any other demons we've talked about here, with an estimated total of only about 100. Granted, because of the previously stated world that wants to kill any outsiders, we can't be sure about that, but still. They're classified as ambivalent, but depending on how you look at it, they could also be seen as benevolent, yeah? I mean, when they feed, they bring about death, but they also cause life around them to flourish in the process. Also, fun fact, the only known recorded instance of a human meeting a blood and decay demon involved descriptions like beautiful, terrifying, and biblically accurate, whatever that means. And finally, we come to the last of the currently known realities. This one will be shorter, not only because out of all the realities we know the least about this one, but also its inhabitants are, well, you'll see. Land of the Unlighted, a fitting name. It's unique in that it's the only reality that we know of that has two dominant species that coexist. It's home to chaos demons and puppetry demons. Neither are something you want to mess with. According to the flame demons that we've been in contact with, even they avoid interacting with these guys. There currently have been no attempts to make contact with either chaos demons or puppetry demons, as it's considered to be incredibly dangerous to do so. Because of this, we don't know anything about what the Land of the Unlighted is like. Both chaos demons and puppetry demons are considered to be malevolent, and should always be considered an active threat. If one is encountered, you need to leave the situation as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, once you're aware that they're even there, it's generally considered to be too late. Especially if it's a puppetry demon. We believe that these two types of demons have a symbiotic lifestyle. Chaos demons feed off of anger, malice, fear, pain, things like that. Puppetry demons, who have no physical form of their own, take over the body of their victim, using them to feed until the host expires. We think that chaos demons stick around puppetry demons while they feed on their host, where they themselves are then able to feed on the negative feelings that arise from the situation. There's also a theory that chaos demons help lure in prey for their puppetry demon counterpart. This is because we do know that where there's a puppetry demon, there's likely a chaos demon nearby, and vice versa. One thing to remember, and this is vital, is that chaos demons bring a sudden, intense sense of uneasiness and a feeling of imminent demise just by being near them. While attacks from them might be rare, if that feeling ever hits you, get out of there immediately. It could be your only warning. Well, that was all lovely. Don't you just love that? Why don't we lighten up the mood by talking about some cool stuff in our own reality? Huh? I promise none of it is as dark as all that puppetry and chaos stuff. Let's see. right. First, the Crosspoints. I'll just give you the SparkNotes version because this is not my area of expertise and it's an extremely complicated subject. But, essentially, imagine that all of these realities that we've been talking about and the infinite other ones out there are all on a patchwork quilt. Each patch is a reality. In between these patches are gaps. These gaps act like highways, kind of, in between realities, and are called the Crosspoints. The Crosspoints are what allow some of these beings to leave their own reality and enter another. But this isn't the only function of the Crosspoints. No. You see, realities bleed into each other through the Crosspoints. So, the abilities of the beings in one reality can be spread to the beings of another reality. These abilities aren't nearly as strong as the original undiluted forms, but it's still pretty cool. It's also where the powers of the Attuned come from. Which brings me on to the next topic, the Attuned. They're humans, like anyone else, but they have extra abilities that make them unique. Also, they're called the Attuned because they're more closely attuned to the Crosspoints. Initially, our powers bled into our reality from others through the Crosspoints, but now there's a large enough attuned population that it's maintained primarily through regular reproduction, passing on attuned genetics to the next generation and all that. That's not to say that spontaneously being born attuned with no family history is impossible, just very unlikely. The Attuned can be divided into 2 categories, although technically it's more like 3, really. There's the mystical and the magical. Then there's also those who are categorized as both mystical and magical. It's fairly simple to tell them apart if you know what to look for. Magical refers to what someone can do. Their abilities themselves are paranormal in some way. Mystical refers to what someone is. Their physical being is paranormal. Whether someone is considered mystical, magical, or both depends entirely on what categorization of attuned they are. We'll only be covering 2 types of the attuned for the moment, but there's plenty more to go over later. First, we've got essence eaters. Historically also referred to as essentia comedentes. It's currently believed that their powers stem from blood and decay demons, and they're classified as both mystical and magical. They are one of the most researched groups of the Attuned because they've been studied for so long. I mean, even this institute was originally founded primarily to study them. They're also one of the oldest known classifications of Attuned, with records and legends going back, like, really far. I told you history isn't my strong suit, right? Anyway, there have been multiple stories and legends throughout history that are thought to be based on essence eaters, most notably succubi, incubi, and vampires. Essence eaters need to feed, like in these legends, although they have options. Typically, they feed off of blood essence, sexual essence, and life essence. The names are pretty straightforward, I think. As far as abilities go, they're known primarily for their feeding habits. However, they also have an increased resistance to many poisons, toxins, and illnesses that would ordinarily affect humans. If they've recently fed, they also have increased physical strength, a much higher pain tolerance, and more resilience than the average human. Unfortunately, though, essence eaters have historically been demonized for various, probably obvious reasons. Because of this, they have a tendency to group together with each other into what we call circles. Here you can see the crests of two of the oldest circles in the area. Crests aren't really done by the more modern groups, though. Apparently, the circles make it easier for them to be able to feed on each other in safety while also having a support and accountability system in place, which makes sense. It also makes it easier for children to feed, as until they reach full maturity, they are only capable of feeding on the life essence of other essence eaters, typically their family members. It also makes sense for them to group together because of their increased lifespans. On average, an essence eater will live to be approximately 160 years old, twice that of the average non-attuned human. Because of this, or really probably for several reasons, most essence eaters will only take another essence eater as a mate. If they do choose to take someone else as a mate, they may take the opportunity to turn them. This doesn't give their mate the powers of an essence eater, but does make them the essence eater's primary feeding source, and it also links the two mates' lives together. This then extends the lifespan to match the essence eaters. Obviously, it's a very big decision, one that should never be made lightly. A mate is chosen only once in their lifetime. And because, well, there is the issue of going feral. It's rare, but in instances in which a mated essence eater loses their mate, they can lose all control. They develop an insatiable hunger, going to extremes and killing while feeding, which is not typical. It's not pretty. Because of this, it's actually pretty rare for them to take mates. Most don't want to take the risk. There are other instances in which essence eaters can go feral, but they are even rarer, and the data on causes is currently inconclusive. There's much more info on essence eaters, but I will cut that short for now. Lastly, we have shifters. Shifters are theorized to stem from mimics. I'd take a shifter over a mimic any day. Wait, no, not like that. Anyway, shifters. There's some discourse within the academic community on whether shifters should be considered only magical because their body's natural form is like that of any other humans, or if they should be considered magical and mystical because technically their bodies do physically change when they transform. Either way, shifters are able to shift or transform into one specific kind of living being that is native to our reality. This living being does need to have similar life systems, though, as in no one's shifting into an amoeba or something like that. It seems to be based purely on genetics. If two shifters of different species? Let's go with species. You know what? Whatever. If a hawk shifter and a dog shifter had a kid, the kid would inherit whichever parent's DNA was more dominant. In this case, it would be the dog, if you were curious. So, essentially, two wolf shifters aren't going to make a bear shifter kid. Make sense? Now, shifters, along with essence eaters, are some of the oldest documented attuned beings. What you see here is a copy of the oldest known reference to one. It's a symbol drawn on an ancient text that described a woman changing into a rabbit. We aren't completely sure if this was a direct account of shifting, or rather just a fairy tale, but either way, it's considered a part of shifter history. And there's evidence that some, not all, but some, shifters express themselves and behave in ways that are similar to their shifting source, instincts, and all that. Along those lines, though, is this phenomenon where the longer a shifter stays in their shifted form, the less likely they are to want to shift back. Apparently, it takes a lot of time spent shifted to reach that point, though. But really, who can blame them? If I had the option to be a cat all day napping in the sun, I'd take it. Anyway, I do believe that's everything for now. I know this was a lot of information to take in, and don't worry, you're not going to be quizzed on it later. To be honest, even most attuned don't know all of this stuff. They usually just stick to the information on their own classification. Well, I'll see you later, alright? Be safe out there.